So I just realized something that completely changed how I think about success. And it's probably going to piss a lot of people off. The most successful people that I know, the ones that are building real wealth, they're traveling freely, they're living life on their own terms, they all think like immigrants, even if they were born in the West. And here's what I mean. I was in Poland a few months ago and I met a guy from Vancouver, Canada. He came down with practically nothing, but with some remote income, and he had a little bit of Russian. Within 6 months, he was living in a beautiful apartment. He was dating amazing women, and he was ultimately saving more money than he could back in Canada. And he's also planning to buy a property out in Ukraine and Poland. Meanwhile, a lot of his friends are back home complaining about what the rent prices are, and they're just waiting for the government to fix the housing crisis. So what was the difference? He started to think like an immigrant. So think about it, guys. When your grandparents or even your great-grandparents came to North America, what was their mindset like? They didn't expect to have everything handed over to them. They didn't wait for perfect conditions. They didn't wait for opportunities. They took those opportunities themselves. They were willing to start over, learn new languages, adapt to new cultures, all for just a better life. And most importantly, they didn't even limit themselves to one location. If opportunities actually dried up in one city, they moved to another. They went where they could build something big. But somewhere along the way, we lost the Western men today act. We're basically trapped between invisible borders. They complain about their situation, but never consider that maybe the solution to fix their current situation, maybe it's just going somewhere better. Anyways, guys, I gotta start my day, so let's keep the video rolling. So just on my way to the gym, guys, but here is the uncomfortable truth. A lot of Western men, they've really developed a entitlement problem. They haven't even realized this. They expect their birth country to provide them with a ton of opportunity, and they ultimately expect the dating market to be in their favor as well. And they expect the government to help them create better opportunities and conditions for their success. But an immigrant doesn't think like that exactly. An immigrant thinks, where can I maximize my potential? What skills do I need to develop in this country so that I can set up my kids for success and myself? How can I position myself for success? They don't wait for their environment to change. They ultimately change their own environment. So I see lots of guys in Toronto and Vancouver, they're making 80 to 100K per year, but they're spending $2,500 on rent, sometimes $3,000. An immigrant would be thinking more like, okay, I make 80K. In what place can I rent that's going to cost me, let's say, $600 or $1,000? So suddenly you're paying for $23,000 more per year, which is great. Now, this is global arbitrage, and this is what immigrants think and have always understood. Your skills are more important somewhere else than they are where you were probably born and raised. Like a Canadian software developer making 100K per year in Vancouver is living paycheck to paycheck, and that same remote worker can live from Mexico City and live like a king, even in Colombia. All right, guys, so what is the global arbitrage opportunity? This is what immigrants have always understood their entire life. Your skills, your income might be worth just so much more somewhere else in the world. And let's say a Canadian software developer is making $100,000 a year in Vancouver, and that same developer who's going to work remotely from Mexico or even Colombia is saving $4,000 per month. A British marketing consultant, even in London, could be thriving in Lisbon with the same clients and half the living costs. But Western men don't think this way because they've been conditioned to believe that leaving is running away from their country. And every successful immigrant family basically got to where they were from moving to where there's more opportunities in life. So your grandfather probably left his village to work in a city somewhere else. Your great-grandfather probably left his country entirely. So we've convinced ourselves that the geographic arbitrage is cheating, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Anyways, guys, I'm off to get a workout in. Let's head inside and I'll take you through a workout with me. another immigrant trait that Western men need desperately, and that's adaptability. Immigrants expect to feel uncomfortable at first. They expect to not understand everything immediately. They're prepared to learn new systems, new languages, even new social. But Western men often give up at the first sight of discomfort. The paperwork is confusing. I don't speak the language. The culture is totally different. An immigrant hears those challenges and they're super happy. They're super excited. They think, of course it's different. That's why there's a ton of opportunity here. So I've watched a lot of Western guys at places like Colombia, Poland, and Ukraine, and they immediately complain that things aren't exactly like they are at home. Meanwhile, immigrants move to other countries and thrive because they expect to adapt instead of expecting the country to adapt to them. Immigrants are also masters of resource optimization. They maximize every advantage that they have. If they have a Western passport, they use it for visa-free travel and work opportunities. If they have a Western education, they leverage it in markets where it's valued way more highly. If they have Western income, they deploy it where it goes so much more further. So most Western men, they do the complete opposite. They have incredible advantages. They have strong passports, education, access to global markets, even remote work opportunities. And they use these advantages to stay exactly where they are. They use it to complain about local problems. So it's like having a Ferrari and only driving in traffic jams. So your Canadian passport opens up 185 countries where your education is valued worldwide. Your ability to earn in strong currencies is massive, but for most of the world. But if you're willing to use these advantages strategically, then it's going to help you stand out from the rest of the world. So the biggest difference is how immigrants view risk versus security. Western men often choose security over opportunity. They'll stay in all of these expensive cities because it feels safe, even when the safety is an illusion. They can't afford houses. They're living paycheck to paycheck, but it's quote unquote familiar to struggle. So immigrants understand that the biggest risk is often not taking risks. They know that staying in a declining situation is much more dangerous than moving forward toward opportunity. So the safe choice is staying put while their purchasing power decreases year after year. That's not actually safe in my opinion. That's just a slow decline. It's disguised as stability, and this comes down to identity as well. Western men identify as citizens of specific countries. Immigrants identify as global citizens, optimizing for success. So you have to ask yourself, are you Canadian first, or are you a skilled professional who happens to have a Canadian citizenship? Are you American first, or are you an entrepreneur who happens to have an American passport? It's a huge mindset shift. The moment you shift your identity from citizen trapped by geography to free agent with global opportunities, everything changes in the entire world for you. You start researching visa requirements instead of complaining about local politics. You start learning skills that work everywhere instead of depending on a local job market. You start building location-independent income instead of hoping for local wages to increase. So here's my challenge. Start thinking like you are a great-grandfather that did the exact same thing. Build something better. Start thinking like every immigrant who looked at the map and said, okay, I'm going here because the opportunities are there. The world is more connected now than it ever has been, and your skills can work globally. Your income can stretch further than you can imagine. Your life can be so much better if you're just willing to think beyond the borders you were born in, and you can actually have an open mind and just travel the world. So drop a comment below. What's one immigrant mindset trait that you need to develop? And subscribe if you want more content about building a truly free location independent life.